we decided to do a video to help our student leaders, our group leaders, with some advice, some things that we've learned through the years, and hope this will be helpful to you as a group leader. Well, first of all, we want you to know how much you're appreciated. We could not do DNow at the level that we're able to do it without good, consistent, dedicated, committed team leaders, group leaders, and we appreciate you so much. So we wanted to give you some help. One of the things that we're doing to help are recording videos for you to use with your groups as you start a session, to play a 5-6 minute video to kind of introduce the topic. It doesn't teach the lesson. That's what your responsibility is. But it will give you a good lead into what the discussion is going to be, and you figure out, look at that thing ahead of time, and you figure out how you can incorporate it into the lesson. And we wanted to make those for your benefit.
Yeah. And I would just want to really repeat, like, the whole DNow weekend to me is kind of to set up the small groups sessions. Like, we do worship and we have a speaker come in, and that's all great and it's wonderful, but the most life change and good conversations and discipleship and all of those things to me happen mostly in the small group sessions. Like, and so small group leaders, like, you're the rock stars of DNow as far as I'm concerned. Everything that we're doing is to set you guys up for the slam dunk, and you take it into your small groups, and you are able to build relationship, pour into these kids, and lead them ultimately closer to Christ.
We hear all the time the long-term memories of, what do you think about DNow? It's the small groups, the connections they make with the leaders, and being able to be heard. When you sit in a large group session, which we have had some incredible speakers, and we've got some people lined up this year, it's going to be fantastic. But what we hear from students is, man, I really love my group leader. We had some great discussion because their voice is heard. They have an opportunity to share and to tell where I'm struggling or how I need encouragement. And so those connections, those relational times that you have with your students, and even the times when you're just sitting around eating snacks, having conversation, those are important. And so use all of your time in the host homes or wherever you're doing your groups. If you don't have host homes, wherever you're doing your small group, and that's an investment. Every minute that you spend with those students is relationship building and making a connection, and all of it matters. And so always be intentional in spending the quality time and getting to know your students. That's the main thing. If they know that you care, they'll listen to what you have to say. Wesley hadn't been too long since he was a student. Wesley, tell us, maybe share a minute about your experience as a student going through the DNow that we do here in Bainbridge.
I know as far as small group goes, I can remember as a student coming up through middle school and through high school, small group was the most important time, and looking back, it was the most meaningful times. A lot of the memories I remember from DNow are from small group time. Like, I remember the games and the things that we done, the worship, but the moments that are going to stick with me the most and mean the most are the moments that we spent together in small group, working on our relationships with each other and working on our relationships with Christ. Those were the big moments.
That's good. That's the avenue that students use to invite their friends to DNow. They don't sell them on, hey, we get to go to Grace Church, which is a great privilege, don't get me wrong, and the worship is awesome, and the speakers have been phenomenal, but you don't sell a friend to come in and join large group or large worship. You sell them on, hey, we get to go to this house and we get to spend time with each other, and we get to, when we do these Bible studies and we have these discussions. So that's how these students are inviting their friends to be a part of. And in fact, our own youth groups will swap with each other. I'll have some of Jeremy's kids sometimes, and he'll have some of mine, because they want to go through this with their friends, because it's relationship building. So don't overlook that opportunity that they're going to grow closer together. And you could be a part of that by encouraging their relationship with each other, but encouraging and building their relationship with God.
When I'm thinking through DNow, it is always like, what can we do to set these small group leaders up for the most success?
Here's the thing to think about as you prepare. And some of you have done it before and have been asked to do it again, which speaks well of you. But your first timers, don't worry so much about the schedule and when you do things. You leave that up to us. We take care of those details. And like Jeremy says, we try to set you up for success. And so we've prepared videos and we actually have written the material that you'll be teaching this year. Yep. We're very excited about us coming together as a group of leaders and actually writing our own material this time. So we're very excited about that. So just some practical tips. Pray up. Be prayed up. Be spiritually prepared for being a leader that these kids will look up to. So you are setting the tone for your group. Take it seriously. Pray, and God will provide everything you need. And study. Know the material, because you'll find out really quickly you can't pull the wool over students' eyes. No. They know how well you know the material right off the bat. Yeah. So you be sincere, you be prepared, you follow whatever schedule the leader makes, but we're trying to set you up for the best experience, and leading into it, preparation. Being prayed up and preparation are the two keys to having a successful group.
And I would just add one other little bit to that, which is come in with almost like a missionary mindset of, I'm here to serve, I'm here to help, I'm here to facilitate. Like I know I've had leaders in the past that kind of came in and they had personal stuff going on, and that happens because life and everything. But as much as possible, if you can just kind of lock in for a weekend and come in with that mentality, prayed up with the idea of, I'm here to serve. I'm not here to be fed. I'm not here to have, for my own fun or enjoyment so much. I mean, you're going to have a blast anyway.
You're gonna have a blast.
But just with that servant mentality that I'm here to pour out what God's done in me to these kids, and learn about what God's doing in them, and help fan that flame that God's already doing in their hearts. So just be ready to be a missionary.
One thing that we try to purposely do is keep the groups to a size that they're not so intimidated that there's only one or two that are getting asked questions, and not so big that somebody disappears. Mm-hmm. So be careful about making sure that everybody in the group counts.
Yeah.
You're going to have those people in a group discussion who dominate the conversation, which makes other people shrink away.
Shot back.
And so figure ways to engage everybody and get to know everybody, not just the leaders, and not just the most outspoken, and not just the ones that answer the questions, but be alert to, this kid's not opening up as much. And so maybe at break, let me spend a little time getting to know them. Make the connection, know names, understand their first names. If you can get those group names ahead of time and be familiar with the names, it's got to be a personal time. It's not, okay, you guys, it's when you address somebody, hopefully it's by their name. And so you make those connections and make everything about this weekend personal, and be intentional to build relationship, even with the ones that are hard to reach and harder to get to know.
Yeah.
And for the students that you may run into that may shy back and may not want to say anything, something I would say is don't force them to open up, because they may not want to, they may not be comfortable. But over the weekend, over the course of your small group time and your group time, let the Lord work on their heart, and hopefully they will open up. But forcing somebody to do something is never.
Well, and I like what you said too, is having a one-on-one conversation with them outside of that small group time could open up the door for, like at the end of that conversation, you could say to that kid, like, hey, would you this is really great. Would you share that with the rest of the group? Because I bet you there's somebody else in our group that's probably gone through the same. So then you're just setting them up as like almost an expert of something. And so when you're in your next small group session, you can say, hey, Steve, that share with the rest of the group what you told me earlier. Mm-hmm. And so you're kind of like, because that's like me to a T. I'm an introvert by nature. And so, but if somebody asks me a specific question and like gives me kind of the floor, mm-hmm. then I'll take it. Yeah. But I'm not in a group where I don't know people and they don't know me. I'm literally just going to sit there and listen and not say a word unless somebody asks me a direct question.
Right, exactly. And when you're asking direct questions, ask questions about their experiences, ask questions about their opinions on things,
and how it relates to them.
Questions. Have you ever, do you know somebody who's gone through something like this? And people can share personal experiences and not be intimidated. But if you ask me point blank what Psalm 27:9 is,
and what it means,
I don't know. Yeah. And then they're shutting down. They're shutting you down. So ask questions that are easy for them to say, well, I kind of know what you're talking about. And the personal times where you can get those stories and go, and like Jeremy said, man, that's a great story. Hey, how about next time we have discussion, you bring that up because that helps.
Yeah, just set them up.
Set it up on the tee and let them swing.
Yeah, man. let them knock that home run out of the park.
That's right. That's good.
One other quick tip that I give my small group leaders that do this week in and week out is what I've seen, and I call the 80-20 rule, which is basically have your group speaking about 80% of the time and you're doing about 20%. Because depending on your personality type, sometimes I've seen small group leaders not say anything. Like they just kind of let the group take over, and then that can go in multiple directions and things like that. And then I've seen the lecturer that comes in and just wants to preach the sermon again or preach their own sermon. And then the kids just kind of are sitting there for 20, 30 minutes going, man, I wish this was over so we could go play something, And so somewhere in the middle ground of that 80-20 or 70-30 maybe is kind of the ratio of how much am I talking versus how much are they talking. Yeah. And so that way you're just facilitating the discussion rather than lecturing or dominating the discussion. Like, I use a lot of times, have you thought about questions?
Yeah.
So like if it's so not necessarily asking them like, what does this verse mean? Like they're going to give the end all be all definitive answer to interpreting this passage of scripture that has probably been studied by scholars for thousands of years, and now they're the ones that's going to have to give us the right answer. But have you thought about what this verse is about? Have you thought about
exactly
why or why do you think that God put this in scripture? Yeah. Like just stuff like that that's real open-ended.
And another thing, like when we teach, say you're teaching a parable about when the guys took the man on top of the roof that was a paralytic and started digging a hole.
I just preached that last night.
You start talking about, ask this question. This is just a thought. What do you think the guys in the room were thinking when stuff starts falling from the ceiling and they realize somebody's digging a hole? Now, if you were in that room, how would you have reacted to there's a guy digging a hole and, they're fixing to lower this guy in here? Yeah. How would you have reacted to that? Nobody can be intimidated by that. I would have been scared. I'd have been nervous. I'd have thought they're crazy because that's just how you would have reacted. Yeah. And so that's not an intimidating way for somebody to share it.
That's not a right or wrong answer.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're also getting discussion, because what's going to happen is that even if you share an opinion like that, the next time you think of something that you might want to say, you're going to be more inclined to say it. Versus, like, if you can get every kid to talk at least once, the odds are you're going to get them to talk again. Yeah. Like, it gets easier the more they do it. So even if you do have a kid that's a little bit more reserved, if you can make it a point to get them to say at least one thing in the first session, and the second session is two things, and, and kind of incremental growth like that can be a big thing and can lead to some really good truth.
Perfect ideas. Listen, also know that you're the one responsible for keeping them on track, because discussions can easily get diverted, and we're all of a sudden we're talking about football and video games and other things other than now those discussions are not unimportant, because there's how you can make connections to these kids if that's what they're interested in. But at least during the study time, which is 45 minutes, an hour tops, keep them focused and read. You may have to be the one to rein them back in and introduce the next question and try to keep them on topic and get them to write in their books. They're going to remember
a really good one.
way more
if they write
of what they write down than what they just hear. So get them to fill in those blanks and get them to answer those questions. Give them a minute. You just be quiet for a minute and say, hey, look at number 3 and write your answer down for that. And that way, that gets them focused on what we're talking about and gets them actually answering the question and keeps them on topic for a minute. So
it gives them that processing time too.
Yeah.
Because that's something that, for better or for worse, like we're all used to text messages and emails and things like that. So if somebody sends you a text, like you don't typically have to respond within 3 seconds, right? You can take it, especially if it's important. Like you can kind of take a minute and think about what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, and so giving them that time, even within a small group session, can be really beneficial, because it just gives them a little bit of that time to process it rather than just think of the first thing off the top of your head. Because most of the time, the first thing that you think off the top of your head is either one of those tangents or it's something completely nonsense or not really a personal truth or anything like that. It's
right. And you're not asking them to share the deepest, darkest secrets in their heart. But here's another strategy. If you know that there's one question that you want people to respond to, have you had experiences with this particular subject that we're dealing with? Introduce the subject to start with. Say, I want to give everybody a chance to share something about this and tell them what it is. And then say, but before we do that, let's get to know each other.
Yeah.
Tell me one thing about yourself that we don't know.
Yeah.
And that way they've got that thought in their brain that they're already churning, going, what am I going to share about that? What experiences do I have in that? And you give them a chance to come up with something instead of saying, all right, your turn, here's your question, and then they're on the spot.
Yeah.
The least you put them on the spot, the more they're apt to respond. And if you can get them talking about themselves, they'll open up. It's kind of an icebreaker. If, we barely know each other. Tell us who you are, where you go to school, and one thing about yourself we don't know. And it's a great discussion.
The craziest
starter.
thing you've ever eaten.
Yeah. The coolest place you've ever visited. Any question like that to get an icebreaker going, to get discussion flowing.
That's good.
So another thing I would say is keeping things confidential in small group. Your boys group, you don't have one of your boys going back to the girls group saying what we talked about in group, because we all know what we're going to talk about from the booklet, but there's going to be conversations in there that may not relate to that book, that may relate to personal things. And, you don't want to break a trust with a kid.
And ask them to respect that trust as well. What's said in our group.
Yeah.
And you have a responsibility to hold that confidential, because somebody may just really be looking for an opportunity to have somebody that's shown some care to them to share a burden that's on their heart. And you don't need to be the one. Now, here's an exception to that. And I think this is very important. If you think that this is something that a youth pastor might need to know, that if this guy's talking about possibly hurting himself or
he's being harmed or something like that,
harmed, we have a responsibility to look out for their well-being. So if there's something that could put them in harm's way, let one of the youth ministers know, hey, listen, I've really got a concern here, and share it in confidence with them, not in
because we're not going to go back and tell everybody. That's not what we do.
Where it comes from doesn't matter as much as we're addressing whatever need may arise.
Yeah, and I'm really upfront with when I'm leading a group like that with, hey, everything in this group is going to remain confidential.
Yeah.
Except for if you're in danger or someone else is in danger, or some kind of law has been broken.
Yeah.
Right.
Like those are the only things that are going to cause me to have to take something that was said in this group to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll even explain it to them because we're in Georgia. We're mandated reporters,
Yeah,
meaning if a
we've
child
got
comes
to.
to me and tells me about something that's happening at home that would be considered abuse, I have to, as a mandated reporter, I have to take that
That's
to
right.
somebody
Or we can
else.
get in trouble.
Or then I become responsible and as a small group leader. And so that's where that youth pastor can come in and say, hey, let's handle this in a different way. And so that way the small group leader can continue doing what they're doing and the youth pastor can handle that. And that's a great way to handle those tough situations that are just an unfortunate part of student ministry.
You know, another thing that we haven't mentioned that we hope that you understand is we want you to enjoy this time. We want it to be fun for you, and we want it to be fun for our students. So don't be so dogmatic and stick to the book kind of thing and get on to kids that get distracted easily. Remember, this is voluntary for them and for you. So let's make it fun. Enjoy your time. And obviously you have a heart for students or you wouldn't have agreed to take a group to start with. And if you have an issue or a question that you can't answer, let them know that. You know what? Let's me and you look at the answer, look for that answer together, because I don't have that answer.
Yeah.
We can talk to an adult, or we can go to the book, or we can go to a youth pastor and ask those things. Don't try to be the final authority on everything, because we all have times where, wow, that's a great question. Let's look at that together. Or don't feel like you have to be the solution to everything, or everything, that you've experienced everything, because you're going to be learning as well. You're going to be learning what the students are going through. And so don't try to be the final authority and the biggest authority on everything, because we're all still learning how to be disciples of Christ.
And a lot of times we've used the word leader a lot. A lot of times I use the word guide, and kind of like if you were hiking and I've hiked this mountain before and I take you and you've never hiked this mountain before, like it's still going to be hard for me. Like I'm still part of the process, but I've been here before. I've done it before. I know what to expect, and I'm bringing you along with me. And so kind of looking at our relationships in these small groups as, hey, I'm a guide. I've been a little bit further down the road than you, and I've learned a few things, and I'm still learning some more things, but let's walk this path together this weekend and see what God wants to teach all of us.
And these things that we're about to tell you now are necessary to tell you. We've kind of hopefully given you some advice and some helps to help your groups be successful. But we have some expectations as the ones responsible for DNow that we're going to ask you to stick to, and they're not negotiable. Okay? The pranking, the teasing, those things that would call one person out and cause them to be the object of a laugh just so you can look cool or somebody else in the group look cool. We have some rules in DNow that make DNow that have helped DNow to last as long as it has. You don't do something for 20 something years because you don't have rules. You have boundaries, you have expectations. So the no pranking rule is not negotiable. Even within your group, stop as much as you can them pranking on each other within the group at night when they go to bed, and because you want everybody's experience to be memorable and not miserable.
That's a good way to put that. We have such a limited amount of time at DNow, because I know for me it feels like I blink
and it's over.
And it's over, And so there's such a limited amount of time that our focus and our intentions have to constantly be towards what God is doing for this weekend,
right,
and what is my role in that. And so the pranks just derail the intention of the weekend in so many ways that it's just not worth it.
Follow the rules as much as possible. Each home will have different rules, and we are guests in a host family's home. If you're spending the night there or just having Bible study there, give them time to speak to the kids and say, hey, you know, welcome to our home, and introduce themselves. So include them as much as they want to be included. Give them an opportunity to build some relationship, because we couldn't do this without host homes or places to do the study. So if you're working with a host family that's spending the night, say, hey, why don't you go over a couple of ground rules here at your home, and let the kids know up front what the expectations are there. And you need to be a part of that too, and helping host families and host couples maintain the order that needs to be there for that to be a successful weekend.
Yeah. One that we've kind of hit on the last few years is the places where we have meals. Those churches have graciously offered to host those meals. A lot of times they're providing food for those meals based on the numbers that we've given them.
That's a good one.
And so it's a good thing for small group leaders to, if a kid said, hey, I'm going to run to Taco Bell or do this or do that, and you go, no, we're going to go eat where everybody else is going to eat, you know, and then there might be some opportunities outside of that, but then make that the primary place that they eat and are with the rest of the group. It's part of the experience. It's part of the weekend. It's part of what they paid for. You know, all those things would just go a long way into making things run more smoothly, so that we don't have groups scattered all over town.
If you want to go to Dairy Queen after a worship session, man,
that's what
great.
we've done.
That's up to you.
But we went as a
but
group.
Don't do it instead of going to the pizza lunch, or you know, walk into. You didn't come to the meal. Your group didn't show up for meal, but you're walking into the big worship session and everybody's got a cup.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. But don't take away from what's already on the schedule, because those things have been worked over and redone and shifted around to give us maximum time with our students and encourage their growth in the Lord.
If you're a small group leader, like, that means you're automatically coming in with some kind of an authority, even if you don't feel like an adult, you know, like, and you're closer to this than me, but I remember in my early 20s, like, I didn't feel like an adult. And so I didn't think like that. And so if, like, the kid that I knew when I was in high school and they were in middle school, I could crack a joke on them and it's no big deal. But then all of a sudden I'm the authority.
Yeah.
And now changes. It's like your teacher,
it's a huge deal,
roasting you. You know, like, it just hits different. Like, it hits different. And I was like, oh, I gotta rethink that.
So, hey, we're praying for you guys as DNow is coming up. You guys were specifically chosen because we know that God can move through you and through the students that you all have. And if you guys have any questions, any comments, any concerns, then just come to a youth pastor. It can be me, it can be any one of us, but just come to us and let us know, and we'll do our best to accommodate you guys. So have a great weekend. We love you guys.